All right, I'll start the record. Yeah, recording is on,
Excellent.
and you can start whenever you feel like it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today, Philip. Philip, for today, the last masterclass of 2020. It's been a interesting journey for you, sir.
Yeah.
Surfing the triple bottle lines, and today we are also bringing together a whole group of friends and people from our entrepreneurial community to actually discuss in detail um, the importance of protecting and leveraging your design. So this is all just a bit of a preamble, but thank you for tuning in. If this is on a record, we're just waiting for some people to arrive here, and we'll. How many we got in our waiting room just now?
We have a couple of people, and
Okay, let's start welcoming them in, and we can just start informally having a chat with them. That's what
sure.
just find out who they are. Yeah.
So we have Christine and Kellen.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Do you want to unmute yourself and maybe tell us a tiny bit about yourself, about your background?
Yes, welcome, Christine and Kellen. It's great to have you here. We would love to interact with you in this workshop session. So if you can perhaps put on your audio and your video, it would be great to have you here just while we're waiting for a few more people to arrive.
We have another person coming in too, which is good.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Oh, hello, Chris. Oh, there's Christine. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Well, welcome. How are you? Good morning.
Good.
Do you guys know each other? Do you know Philip?
No.
Okay, great. Well, then it's always interesting to know where people come from, but we're just waiting for a few people to arrive. Perhaps you could start with a short intro about yourself.
Yeah, hi. Well, my name's Christine Phillipe. I'm Managing Director of a company called Catestone Environmental and a CEO of a weather company. And I'm also an atmospheric scientist. So I sit in the science space and I try and run businesses as well. So from my point of view, understanding how to protect IP obviously is something that I know we need to do and we kind of do, but I probably need to do it better. So that's why I'm along today.
No, that's great. That's great to have you there. No, look, IP is one of those areas that stretches from all the way to innovation through to creativity and many areas in between. And it sounds like you're quite entrepreneurial, Christine, there too. So you'll probably get a lot of value across different businesses. Always a good way to compare the value of IP as well. Are you a designer at all, just out of interest, or is it just sort of no, it's just science and innovation?
Science. I mean, I do love art. So when it comes to being creative, that's probably where that comes from. So, but yes, I'm a scientist who, probably doesn't follow the rules when it comes to some of those things.
Excellent. Well, we're going to just give it a couple of minutes while everyone comes on board. But Philip is a designer. I'll let him introduce himself. He's a TEDx speaker. He's an accomplished entrepreneur in his own right and advises designers. Well, he is a designer and works as an industrial designer. If that's okay, intro.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been designing for over 28 years now. And I've been working with founders and CEOs and entrepreneurs. That's been my kind of audience, people I've been working with for the last 28 years. And I've developed a specific design methodology specifically for entrepreneurs because they have different needs and they need to stay lean and agile at the beginning of the journey. So and IP is one of the components of that, and that's what we're going to talk about this morning.
Hi everyone.
We've got another person online.
The content outline and then the marketing brief. Also working on
they need to make
the new monthly maxi news that we're going to put together. So collecting content and working on the template.
Actually, you can mute him, Philip.
Yeah, I think I will mute whoever HP.
That's right. We've just realised that because I'm Darwin-based, Christine, there might be, it's 10 a.m. where you are at the moment. Is that correct or not? Where are you located?
No, I'm in Brisbane, so it's only 9 o'clock.
Okay.
It's all right. Look, it was always going to be different. And look, it sounds like a really interesting mix of people from different backgrounds here that have RSVP. We also acknowledged that it was December, so like people are probably already beginning their gold rush towards Christmas. But if Kellen or HP, if either of you are there, we just muted HP, but if you would are paying attention to this webinar, we'd love to hear from you, just because this is a masterclass, and we're looking forward to working with you on your business rather than broadcasting another webinar in a year where we've probably been saturated with Zooms. One-way dialogue. We're looking to do a two-way dialogue today. Eric Schreiber is here. Eric, if you'd like to just introduce yourself as well, it'd be great, as this is an interactive session. Eric?
Yeah,
I know Eric.
I'm just.
Hi, and welcome to you, sir. How are you?
G'day, pretty good, mate. How about yourself?
Very, very well. We're just doing a few informal introductions just while we get going here. And Eric, we've worked together over the years, and you've have a varied background in insurance and in data.
That's correct.
Maybe you could introduce to the fellow entrepreneurs around this table a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a camera here at the moment. I don't seem to be online visually. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't see you visually, but we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I was just trying to get a bit of a visual first. If you can just bear with me just for a sec. Start video. Okay, here I am.
Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Hi, Ray.
Good, thank you.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, no, just a bit of an intro. Yeah, as Gareth said, my background is quite extensive when it comes to insurance. Data is a fairly new field, which I'm starting to get involved in. Still a bit at the beginnings of a bit of a business setup, which we're trying to get up and running. And Gareth actually was heavily involved in setting up the IP for our logo, which we're very grateful
Yeah, that's
for.
right.
He put a lot of work
into
it, and it's gave us a really good understanding of the process and what you need to go through in terms of getting one registered to protect the copyright for the logo itself. So
yeah, we will touch on the protection of your trademark today, because it was it was a very involved process, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a very strong logo, and actually this was over 3 or 4 years ago, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, what I loved working with you guys, you and your wife, it's Desi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Des. On this business she's a data analyst, and this was a data. A business was set up to actually solve data. So it was a very strong brand. And before many of the now more prominent worldwide issues around privacy, which is another copyright, Eric and his partner have really created a really strong business that is dealing in intellectual property. But we will touch on trademarks today. Yeah, thank you for that reminder. And you're still enjoying the benefits of that protection, because it's a 10-year protection, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes, which I wouldn't mind asking as to, can that be extended actually too? It's probably a bit of a query actually down the track.
That's a good question, and we will touch on trademarks on the other side of designs. Maybe this is a good place for us to get started. If either Kellen or HP want to make their videos on some stage, we're happy to interact with them. But I'm going to now introduce the guest speaker today on this session, but also a collaborator in the entrepreneurial space. He is a TEDx speaker. He is from France. His name is Phillipe, and he is also a great supporter of ideas and idea makers, both here in Australia and abroad. He's an industrial designer, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Phillipe, as he is going to take us through to some of the considerations around designs and why it's important to protect these, being a very important asset in your business. Over to you.
Thank you, Gareth. Thanks, everyone. So first, I'll need to find my slides, and I will ask you if you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Fantastic. So yeah, I will start by saying bonjour. I'm, as you can, oops. All right. Oh.
It's all good. You're just getting started. You might want to make that a screen,
yeah,
full screen too. Presentation mode.
Yeah,
one.
Full screen. And where is the presentation mode here? Oh. I didn't plan on that. So let's
just go with those if you like.
Show from the start.
Oh, right. There you go. You're full fresh, like a French wine field.
All right, and I'll see if I can. It's bizarre. It's not, oh, it's working now. Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Let's see. So yeah, I just want to also acknowledge that I am French, and therefore you will hear a French accent. So I hope it's intelligible enough and you can understand me well enough today. So today we're going to talk about intellectual property and the importance of intellectual property from the design stage through the whole process and scale of the business. So before we dive into that, I just want to take a couple of minutes to state the position of Australia in the innovation from global world ranking. And I think it's an important topic because what I see that it takes everyone to really raise our position in the global innovation index. So I will start by paraphrasing and not quoting exactly what Richard Dennis said. He's the head of or was the head at the time of the Australian Institute. And he said pretty much that Australia's wealth, so to speak, in the last 40 years has been made by two decisions. The first decision was China will buy our coal, and the second decision was India will buy our coal. And that drove a lot of revenues for Australia and drove a number of resources and everything. And that was a fantastic time because it led quite a level of prosperity for Australia. At the same time, it also had an impact on the mindset and the way we innovate. So that's one of the starts of the conversation I want to highlight today. So if you look at the culture of innovation in Australia, we don't have such a great culture in innovation. I think there are great minds in Australia, but if you look overall, there's really room for progress in terms of what we can do in terms of the innovation spirit, I would say, and mindset. So that's a point really worth taking. And when you look at the global ranking, it depends on which angle you want to look for. And sometimes people say we're not that bad, or we way down the ladder or anything, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that at the latest Global Innovation Index ranking, Australia was 23rd. And that's something that concerns me a bit in terms of innovation, because we have the resources, we have the mind, we have the schools, we have the infrastructure, the government infrastructure, and the manufacturing infrastructure, and the research infrastructure to really do better. So what's happening, and in a lot of conversation I have with entrepreneurs or CEOs of company, they say, well, it's hard to do innovation in Australia because the wages are very high. And then my answer is like, okay, Switzerland is the #1 ranking on the Global Innovation Index, and their wages are in between 25 to 40% higher than ours. And they're still ranking #1. So I don't take that as a very good excuse. I think that's something that we should contemplate, and maybe there's something to do about it. At the same time, it's not preventing anyone to do innovation. So there are a number of things that we can improve on. One is the venture capital allocated in R&D in Australia. We can definitely do better. The barrier to entrepreneurship, I hear a lot of companies complaining about the red tape, but if you really look at the data, it's not the easiest, but it's not the hardest. And you're talking to a French person who's been running businesses in France, and I can tell you the red tape over there is really next level. So it's so much easier easier here in Australia to start a business and to even try and fail a couple of business before you move forward. The funding and R&D also can really be improved, and it's amazing the difference that makes, you know, the 0.1 or 0.2 points of difference from last year to previous year or something. That scale of innovation and R&D is really making a difference. So I think it's going to take all of us to really move the needle forward and then go up the ranking. So now I'm going to talk about, from the design perspective, what IP means from, you know, an industrial designer and its client. So the first project I want to talk about is a convertible sofa I designed when I was 22. And back then, I was wondering what I could do in terms of IP and protection and you know, outcomes also in terms of business. So the sofa you see is a convertible sofa. It can be either a sofa, easy chair, a double bed, single bed, or a simple chair that can be doubled. So that was called the the 5-function sofa. And I was trying to commercialize that. And the only way I could really do that properly after investigating what we would take is to have a patent, because the patent will give me the proper tools to enter into a negotiation and then have this product manufactured. So what happened at the time is I've been able to negotiate a license for this project. And then there were a manufacturer in France who's been manufacturing this project under this license, which means that if I haven't had the patent, I wouldn't have been able to secure a commercial or sales deal in such a way. So
this is a really good point, actually, Philip. If you don't mind me interrupting at this point of the power of patent protection, because for anyone on the call, there might be an element of doubt about the difference between design and patent. Maybe you could just discuss that, because it's amazing. I expected this to be actually about a design, but what you actually protected here was a new method of manufacture in this design.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at
two pieces.
Yeah. If you look at the project, so actually the inventive activity, because that's what the patent is all about, that was a folding process. So there's no, actually, the strength of that product at the time is that there were absolutely no mechanism. Usually when you have a sofa, there's some kind of mechanism, and you know, this one is just fabrics, and it's just the way it folds. It's kind of an origami thing. And then the whole idea is to have this one sofa with armchair, which is very compact. It's 1.20 meters wide, so it's very compact. And that unfolds into a real double bed, which is a real thing. It's a 20-centimeter thick bed. It's 160 by 190 or 200 long. I can't remember the details, but it's a real mattress and a real sofa. And the patent was to protect the invention. It's not just the way it looked. The way it looked could have been protected, but we decided to go with a patent which was much stronger and also will allow us to secure a license deal. Is that answering your question, Gareth?
Yeah, no, it's great, because it's actually the power in intellectual property protection. And what you've just described there, as an entrepreneur and as a designer, you've done both. And in fact, I'll touch on this in the second half of this session, but it is vital to protect your assets, and particularly if you're a creator. And there's many different ways you can do that with IP, but you've just touched on 3: designs, a patent, which is probably the most powerful worldwide, but at the end of the day, how you leverage it for commercial success is through licensing. So this is great stuff.
Yeah, so that was one of our examples, and that's the way I started pretty much in my career when I was 22. The second is a product we designed for a client at the time, and I won't go back on the context, but we were asked to design accessories and design tools or power tools for a company who was working in a DIY industry, things, Bunnings and everything about that. And we found that there were an accessory that was worth putting out there and selling, and that was a paintbrush holder. And if you look at most paintbrush holders, they are kind of bulky and they have mechanism and everything. And this one is very playful. It looks like a lobster. So if you take the image, is like a lobster gripping on a pot, and the antenna are holding the paintbrush, and the paintbrush can drip inside the pot, which means you have a clean area you can work with. So that's the rationale. But how do you protect that? Well, the client didn't or couldn't really go with a patent because that was really hard and there were all other stuff out there. But because the design is so distinctive that the client made applied for a design registration, which protects the shape of the product. And again, I would just want to insist on the IP protection over there, because it meant that nobody could copy that. Yeah, you can go with another lobster that will even look similar. That would have been seen as a copy. And that was the strength of this product. And therefore, it meant that the product had absolutely no competition for over 15 years. Because you just can't copy that. And it's either you design something completely new, and nobody did the work, or you copy it and then you infringe the design registration, which means that you cannot sell in a market where it's been protected. So that's also the strength of IP. It's just not because it's pretty or it's different. It's also, it has a sales and commercial purpose. So that's the other project I wanted to mention. Another one is an aquarium tank. It's called a Zinio, and it's at that time I was working for a large multinational, and there's a lot to be said about that product. But one of the things that we did is we exploited a new market niche, and because of that, we needed to be clever in the way we would enter the market. So one of the things we did, we created a range and a collection, and at the time we knew that our competitors will copy literally what we be doing, even the look and feel of the product, and sell that for a fraction of the price because, well, they didn't have to pay for the R&D. And most of our competitors also at the time were manufacturing in China. So we tried to find a way to play that to our advantage. So at that time, the company was in Europe and the manufacturer was in Europe. So we had, we decided on some kind of lean manufacturing options, which mean that we go directly from the manufacturer to the distribution. So that was very effective in this way. And we also started to protect that with a patent and design registration, but also what we call collection. So if I explain what a collection meant at the time, the collection process was based on how the competition will react. So we knew that we will enter on day one with 3 different type of products, like 3 different graphic design and ambience styles. And we knew that our competition would pretty much copy exactly what we were doing. But because they're based in China, it takes a bit of time to manufacture. And then it takes time to ship that with boat to Europe, and then enter the market, negotiate that, and then, so it takes about 5 to 5.5 months from them to copy and then enter the market. So we decided to do collection every 6 months, which meant that we launched collection 1, and we were quite successful on the launch. So that was really good. And after 5.5 months, we had a competition arriving with products that were similar, like not really as good, but I would say similar to ours, and they were half the price, if so. But at that time, our strategy was to say, okay, this is competition, but this is collection number 1, but now we have collection number 2 coming, and we arrived with collection number 2, which was a different feel, different colors, different graphic design at the back. And we said collection number 1 is completely passé. That was so last year. And now we have collection number 2, which meant that the competitors were left with inventory and they couldn't sell their goods because they were part of the passé and they couldn't really enter the market as we did. And so the competition did that a number of times until they were left with enough inventory that their business was not viable anymore, which means that with the protection we had with patents and design registration, we could go ahead, and that market was secured for 14 years. So
wow, that's amazing. That just really demonstrates, the power of IP protection and incredibly also protecting your creative work. And that this process, which you alluded to at the beginning of today, the commercialization, something Australia's not fantastic at doing, but this great example is how designs and patents have actually able you to create a monopoly and a monopoly doesn't mean own everything, but you've been able to carve out your niche in the industry, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah. And it took 14 years for competitors to enter the market without breaking the rules and breaking the law, so to speak. So it required quite a fair bit of effort for any competitors to really enter that market niche. And that market niche for us was fantastic because we had a very, very high profit margin on that particular product. So you imagine a high profit margin and being kind of alone on your market for 14 years. It's a recipe for success.
Well, it is. That's a multi-million-dollar business, possibly. Yeah. And just for everyone's benefit on the call too. I mean, this is often what I have seen. I've been practicing in this area of IP for nearly 20 years, and the amount of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial people I meet that don't understand the basis of just how to leverage. One, you've got to have a very strong design and a product idea, which what Phillipe helps with. But two, these 2 or 3 instruments, just these 2 or 3 alone, designs, patents, and then leveraging them through licensing is what is actually needed between someone that's selling goods just online on, via their website to family and friends and a multi-million-dollar business. And I really want to just push that one home because I think it's really valuable information that's being shared here today.
Yeah, definitely. So another case study is another product that was a dental spectrophotometer we designed for a client. And again, I was involved at the very early stage of that company, but they had design registration and they also had patents. And at the time, those 2 IP tools helped them secure venture capital. And without that, they couldn't access venture capital.
It's another really, really good point about the value of IP protection. It can be used as a way to market to investors to show that they're actually investing in something.
Exactly. It's part of the portfolio evaluation. So that's something going to touch a bit later. And the last one, it's a project I was involved a couple of years ago. So we designed a chair, and this chair is made of linen. So all the brown part that you see, it's not wood, it's linen. It's a composite material made out of linen. And the company leveraged an existing technology, and they, in that case, they secured a license, a specific license for that technology. And on top of that, they created value and added value, which means that they also have a design registration, of course, and they have also a couple of patents on that product. So if you look at that product that is currently selling, it's called the Revology chair. It's the whole base of that company is also born from IP and will keep developing with IP. So that's kind of the examples I wanted to touch on today. And I want to maybe conclude with a couple of thoughts with IP and business. So IP will help you with sales because one thing is that when you have, let's say, a patent or design registration, you can say, well, we control manufacturing, we control quality and everything. And if you buy a copy, you don't have those quality control. But if you buy from us, from the original manufacturing, then you have the real good quality, the real original product. So it helps secure sales and explain the value proposition from the business perspective. The other thing we mentioned briefly, IP is definitely part of the company valuation. So again, I want to touch on 2 aspects of that. One is I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So if they have design registration, trademark, and patents, it really helps secure venture capital. If you don't have that, it's much harder. If you have a couple of patents and design registration and everything, it's really part of the valuation of the company, and it really help move forward and scale. The other thing is that if you look at the difference between a company that have absolutely no IP and another one that's been building an IP portfolio after 5 or 10 years, their valuation is completely different. And I think Gareth can really touch on that maybe later, but you can have a 2 or 3 or 5-fold difference when you have IP. It's really part of the portfolio that a company can defend and build on. And the last bit is market protection. So when you have IP, and I was thinking about the lobster, if there is a competitor that come with another lobster, you can put them out of the business or out of the sales area. And I've seen that. I worked for a company years ago where one of their competitors did a blind copy of one of their product. They just printed their patent and went to the shop directly and asked for the manager, and they told the manager, this is an infringement of our patent. I'm just telling you nicely, you just put all the stock out of your shelves today, and we won't take further action, and tell all your colleagues to do the same. And I can tell you within the next hour, everything was gone. So it's IP is super important when you want to deal with market protection, which is you also secure the marketplace for your own benefits. So that's kind of the different points I wanted to touch on today. If you have any products or idea or stuff like that, I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you and see if I can help you and help you with Gareth. And I just want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you, Gareth.
Hey, that is a wonderful introduction to the real importance of product design protection. Philip, I can't be more thankful enough, because it's great to have your generous spirit on the call.
Pleasure.
And also the experience that you've had, because I find it really rare, actually here in Australia, where people this area of knowledge which helps people leverage their ideas. It's super, super important. Not only do you need a really strong design or idea, which is probably half the battle, but the other half of the battle is taking it to market, which is why I think this is a great opportunity for everyone on the call, whether it's Christine, Eric, or anyone else that may be here. If you've got a question for Philip, this is a great time to ask. If you've got a product idea, this is a great thing now to ask. This is a workshop session. It's designed to be interactive. So, and he's had 20 years plus experience in this area. So please, Eric, why don't you start? Because I know you've been working on a few ideas. Is there something particular around designs or product protection you'd like to ask Philip?
At this point, not really. A lot of the concepts we're doing is more service-based, so probably IP doesn't really come into play in time for that side. But down the track, I could definitely see some benefits, and actually with Phillipe, if he's happy, if he can send an email showing his contact details. I couldn't get his information quickly when he.
Yeah, that's fine. I put that on the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We can touch on. I mean, IP. Yes, you're right. Philip is a product designer. So, but IP is just as relevant in service-based businesses. We can get into that in the second half of today's session. But go for your life, Eric, if there's anything else you'd like to say.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this presentation, part of the global social media.
Have I got another person there?
I thought we might have a third presenter for a moment.
I thought, okay, I better let the other person talk first. Yeah. No, at this point, I'm okay, Phillipe. No, actually, what you said is very informative, and I'll definitely take on board what you're saying. If, let's say, something comes along where that would be relevant. But I think even the trademarks and things, protecting your identity is also something I found that, the IP part is a very important part of it, because it effectively that represents who you are as a business, or what it represents for yourself. So
it's a really good point there, and not just because we were talking trademarks, and Philip's presentation covered the registrable rights of design and patents, but trademarks is your visible brand. And it's just as important, as Eric has found out, to ensure that that gets protected.
Yeah. If I can just jump into that. So I put the LinkedIn.
I've got that, Philip. Thank you very much for that.
You mentioned that you're more service-based and everything, and we talk about trademark with Gareth. One of the entrepreneurs in my network that I work quite closely with is only doing service-based products, but they are all trademarked. That you have the brand is trademarked. All the different products have a trademark. If they have a blueprint, it's trademarked. Like it's, and that's also part of the valuation and the way they negotiate license. You know, they sell their services through that and say, well, if you use that framework, you use our trademark and our framework, and this is the license that goes with it. So Gareth can probably dive into that, but it's a very powerful tool also for commercial and business purposes.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah.
I've got a question for you. We're in the service industry as well, but we also design software. And so I suppose I'm interested in your comments, Philip, on trademarking the design of a software that obviously, you know, it's not just the interface that's the core of what you're doing, it's the back, you know, it's the calculations, it's the data, it's the, you know, how you pull it all together. Is that something that should be, you know, I mean, we do trademark our products, but the back end of how something actually works, is that, do you do a patent on that? I mean, that's something we haven't really looked into.
I'm not a specialist in softwares. I have a few friends and companies that around me that do that. Probably Gareth would be the best to answer that, but I know you can do copyrights and patents, and to what extent, I'm not exactly sure, but it's definitely doable and possible.
Yeah, I can answer that question just because of the IP law background that I have, but also because one of our staff members, he's actually a patent attorney, and a patent attorney, he has actually registered his own software. Software is there has been some conflicting views on software whether you can actually, it is considered patentable subject matter. But if there is a kind of patent, Christine, called an innovation patent, which if the software has a sufficient new innovative step, it can be protected as a patent. Now, and as Phillipe said, it's a combination of copyright, which I'll get into in a minute, and potentially patent protection. What's probably strongest with software protection is to have a really strong end user license agreement, or a software as a service agreement, a SaaS agreement, because that's actually the license that can go with the software if it's not patentable. So as Phillipe said, there's two kinds of IP within software. One is copyright, and the second is a potential innovation patent. But that's something that I could have a conversation with you offline about if and when it's of interest. It is good to know, it's good knowledge to have whether things are patentable or not, because more often than not, they're the kinds of conversations that I have all the time. Can I do this? Can I do that? Or in some cases, people don't even know that they're capable of a registration, and it quite possibly could be, particularly if it's even if it's a soft step, new and innovative. The other thing that I'll make about this is that if you ever are going on the fundraising pathway, then in terms of raising funds, having your software registered in some form on your asset register can really demonstrate to investors that you've actually thought about protecting their investment, and it's if it's a core part of your business. I'll just give you one final example on this, because I hope that these sharing of stories just assists you. But basically, I've just spent the last couple of weeks with a business up here in Darwin who's been doing R&D for 10 years, and they haven't sold a product, which is just amazing, right? And they've got 11 developers, and they're developing actually products and software. But to their credit, they've been able to gain more and more R&D grant funding because they have protected their intellectual property. It's like Phillipe's example of the designs with registration, and perhaps ones that are just a product that a designer sold through their own personal website. At the end of the day, this particular business has collected its IP assets. They have 11 trademarks. They have a US patent, Europe patent, even a China patent over their software. Okay. And I have just spent the last 3 weeks doing an IP assessment or audit to uncover more IP, because they've designed products like workplace health safety, and they've actually designed the actual product, which is a unit that people on mining sites can actually take out, and it's got gas detection units in it. And all of a sudden with COVID, they're seeing more opportunities. But if they hadn't have all those IP assets protected, including the software, the units, to a degree, and not much, there was, well, 11 trademarks sounds like a lot. They definitely had their products registered. They definitely had their software registered, but they had no designs. Long story short, this business still can be valued at several $1 million because they've protected the assets, and they actually have undervalued them. And that's why I'm doing it, because what I'm doing now is an international commercialization strategy, because they're in a position to do it, because they've protected their IP. So look, in short, that's why I think this information is really useful, whether you're an entrepreneur who's just selling through successful delivery through manufacturing and license agreements worldwide, or if you're a small business owner on the journey to entrepreneurship, this knowledge can help you leverage and multiply your business offering. I hope that helps in a short way with a long story.
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Look, I might use this as an opportunity to jump into some of this content here, because I did prepare specifically a worksheet for today's session. Did everyone receive that, by the way? If you didn't, that's okay. I also think I copied and pasted here, and it's actually the first link, if it's working, the Google Drive link. The Google Drive link will hopefully connect you to a worksheet, or Philip, if you have it in a PDF form on your desktop, maybe you could drop it into the chat box. But I wanted to use this as the bridge for my presentation on IP, and particularly as we've been lucky to have Philip here as a guest today, really focusing on designs. But I know that because of service-based businesses, we can go further than that. Can I just ask you on the call first, just as a way of enrollment here, what your view of intellectual property is? Because I'm already getting a sense of it from the conversations going around. Can I start with, Philip, what your view of intellectual property is? What is it?
For me, it's an essential tool to protect all the investment that's been done, like the brain investment that's been done in innovation. So it's there are different ways to protect that, but you spend the design and R&D work can be really extensive, and you can spend days and months and years in developing a new product, and you need your money back. And the only way to have that is to really secure some form of IP protection. Patent, in my mind, would be best, because that's the world of hardware I live in. But it's really essential, and there are a number of reasons. One is there's a commercial and business reason. The other is you don't want to have any kind of knockoff of your product going into the market that doesn't respect the standards and the quality that you are after. There's, invention or an activity is also linked to the way it's built and manufactured and produced. And that's the way to guarantee some kind of quality control for the client. So,
yeah, great.
So if you look at a chair, for example, that's a very good example of that. Is it possible to build a cheap knockoff from that? Probably. Is it difficult? Yes, because we made it difficult. But the main point is that we did a lot of mechanical design and R&D and everything to make sure that this chair will last quite a number of years. And that's what you buy when you buy the chair.
Okay, look, that's great. So what in the first part of that answer, what I really gained from that is it's the protection of knowledge. And that is precisely what intellectual property is. Whether it's the algorithms of software, whether it's the shape of a design, or a chair, or more fundamentally, if it's trading in data like Eric's business has. All of these things are known by the World Intellectual Property Organization as a product of the mind or the intellect. That's what intellectual property is. And I think it's really important to understand that within the form of actually about 6 core rights. Intellectual property is known as a bundle of economic rights. So more often than not, where there may be copyright, there may also be a patent, which may confuse things. But we call it unregistered and registered rights. I'm going to cover the unregistered rights because it's really important to understand the bundle of economic rights that is intellectual property. The other core thing that is worth writing down somewhere on your worksheet there. Has everyone got the worksheet? I just want to know if you've got it or not.
I put it in the chat, see if you can.
No, it won't let me download it. And I've just got on the Google thing and it said send a share request, so I did.
I'll tell you what, we'll do it in a different way. What we'll do is when I get to designs, I'm going to then ask to share screen, and then we'll just go through it on the screen.
Okay.
But no hassle. I'm just going to speak to you because sometimes we have too many tools, right? At the end of the day, intellectual property is a product of the mind and the intellect. And another core rule here with intellectual property is that it protects the expression of ideas, not the ideas themselves. And that's really, really important to understand, because just because you're the first person to create a chair, a designer of a chair, doesn't mean you're the only person that will ever be able to design a chair. But what it does is it protects the expression of the idea, that particular design of the chair. Likewise with software, you're not going to be perhaps the business owner which only create data, Christine, or deals in data analysis, Eric. At the end of the day, other business owners can exist in this area. However, what intellectual property can protect is your unique expression of that. And that's why it's a useful process to, one, do what we're doing today on the worksheet, which is called an IP assessment or an audit of your activities within your business to understand where the intellectual property lies. Because I can guarantee you that every person on this call, intellectual property is lying dormant like a gold mine in your business. And what I make my mission to do is to help people extract their gold so they can actually leverage it and take it to market and commercialize it. And every single person on this call has it in there. And that's why understanding these 6 main forms of rights of intellectual property is, I believe, crucial in forming a strategy to actually leverage your business for greater growth. And so I'm going to just introduce them very, very quickly now, just so you've got a sense of what they are. And first, I've got actually a slide behind me, and I'm just going to refer to that, because this is copyright. Copyright actually protects the expression of ideas, as I just mentioned before. Copyright is like oxygen, okay? We breathe it in and we breathe it out every day. And now we live in a digital world. We are actually swimming in it. Has anyone ever posted a post in the last week, for example? Okay? If you posted a post, if you've shared a post on any social media platform, you've actually shared someone else's copyright. What's happened is you've actually allowed people with certain missions with your copyright and others to share content inside of the platform. But it's really important to know that copyright exists like oxygen. It's in the designs, some of the business schematics behind Phillipe in his imagery. It's in some of the photography. It's behind Christine, and it's in the books on your shelf, Eric. At the end of the day, copyright exists in many, many different places, and it exists in your business. So understanding where the copyright that lies in your business resides will help you then make a plan to leverage it for greater growth. Okay, another couple of quick things about copyright. It protects authorship, okay? It begins with literary works, but it extends to computer programs and even data at the end there, Eric, okay? So copyright, as I said to you before, is in all of your businesses. Everyone here is in this front screen, and probably the others as well. So the real thing to understand there is that copyright is your ground floor, okay? It's your base camp. And it's often not necessarily how you Copyright is not a registrable right. Okay, so it has in Australia automatic protection on its creation. So when you put the schematics designs together, you will have copyright in it. Christine, when you write the business plans or even the early ideas for the software, that has copyright in it. Eric, absolutely, because I know I did your terms and conditions, you're definitely dealing in copyright and are you licensing it? That's the point I want to make. The license terms and conditions that's on iSolve Data's website is actually the rules of engagement of how you deal with the copyright. Same when Phillipe does his deals around, say, supply or manufacturer supply agreements, it's leveraging the copyright or designs and patents in his case, because he's got a good, strong understanding of it. And Christine, any consultant is licensing their copyright. That's what they're doing. They're trading in their knowledge. So this is why I believe intellectual property, and I know it does because it has been with us for actually several hundreds of years. Copyright began with the printing press because it was establishing a pecuniary right for authors to actually gain a financial benefit from what they published. And it exists even more so today in a digital age, which is why I give these free presentations, because I really just want to empower others to understand the value of their own ideas. But it begins with an understanding of copyright, because at the end of the day, like oxygen, we will continue to breathe it in, but the successful entrepreneurs and business owners are the ones that learn to leverage it correctly. So let's move on now, because I'd love to cover these other registrable rights, because these are the core ones that can actually help you, take your ideas further. Designs, I will touch on after trademarks, because Eric brought that up. Trademarks are probably one of the most visible rights. Trademarks protect your brand. They allow you to protect your name, your business logo, and your domain names, and protect them as a badge of origin, protected under the Trademarks Act 1995. It is one of the simplest ways that you can actually protect your ideas. Everyone in this call, if you're a small business owner or entrepreneur, has a brand. And would most of you say that has a value to you? If you are trading on it and have done so for several years, then it has significant value. It's a badge of origin. It's how people recognize you. So it's one of the first steps. I have a question
for you, Gareth, about trademarking your company name. We have our company name, Catestone, has been trademarked for a long, long time. But recently we started a new business around weather called Weather Intelligence. And I tried to trademark it, but they won't allow it because it's too common, or not common, but
that's a good one.
Yeah. So I sort of said to them, well, how can I protect it? And they said, well, no one else can register a company in that same name because you've already got a registered company, and no one else can register the trademark because it won't be allowed. So we pretty much just said, well, it's protected anyway. In some ways, is that what you would?
There's some truth to that, and I'm glad you bring out nuances of trademark law, which basically a trademark is a badge of a number of exceptions, and that was like vanilla. I will use a people with this. Ugg Boots Australia can be protected in Australia because it was seen to be a name in the common vernacular, and there are certain words that you cannot trademark. Easiest way to understand that is wine labels, wine regions, champagne. The French have stopped us calling white wine or sparkling wine. It was now known as sparkling wine. In the 80s, it was known as champagne. There's a famous trademark case from the French with where basically champagne was seen to be a region, and that nobody could use it because it was as a trademark, as a brand, because it was a region. Okay. In a similar way, what did you say, Christine? What was it called?
Intelligence. Weather intelligence. Weather intelligence.
Look, and it is a subjective test, okay? And I'll share with you guys that there are sometimes things get through because a trademark examiner from ISV Australia has to register, analyze your trademark. They basically look at your trademark application and then they make a call on it. So I can personally tell you, I have got a client's trademark through for the name Corner Store, which in my mind, everyone should own the ability to own. I mean, the Corner Store's been with us for several thousands of years. So sometimes it's a bit of unluck, but Weather Intelligence, I am assuming they would say that these are common names. But there are ways you can improve that particular application, which I could share with you. A couple of tips that I can give you online now are register it with a logo. The words alone can be easy to defend, but if you have it a logo, a trademark under the section 121 of the 21 of the Trademarks Act, it calls it a badge of origin, which can be a collection of names, symbols, colors, logos, and other representations. So at the end of the day, if you include a logo, if you then include a tagline,
exactly, yeah,
then this can heighten the threshold because a trademark examiner will make sure that it can be distinguishable from all others. And Weather Intelligence, there may be other examples, but even if it's common, you make it unique by adding a tagline and a logo. Okay.
I want to jump into that if you don't mind, Gareth, but
yeah, go ahead.
I've been witnessing that case a number of times. And the way to go around it or to add value to it is exactly what Gareth's been explaining, which is associating that with some graphic design and logo. And the other was to find a very good tagline. And I put on the chat the link with someone I know. It's called a Word Whisperer. And she's a lady that can help you find a new brand or brand name that is distinguishable for your company, but also she will taglines and everything. And that's from the IP perspective, that adds value to your company because you have a strong tagline and you have something that can really protect and be distinctive. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you. I suppose it's probably something that we should have done. The company's now been operating for 3 years and we're already quite well known. It's not something I want to go and change our name now, but we definitely have a tagline that we can add, and we have a logo, so we could definitely do that too.
Yeah, look, and I'm happy to have a chat with you further about how you can actually raise the threshold of that. It is important to talk IP strategy around some of these things, because it's actually about the plan of how you can actually use the different nuances of these different pieces of IP legislation and use them as instruments to get them through. I'm taking you some of the very basic rules around these things. It's always worth consulting a little bit deeper, and I always do that. Because most of these people have play the goal, whether it's area go and continue up and work together, for me is to add you around your IP, and that means there's these different. Thank you for one up, because it's really important to do for anyone that's building product. This is, you can't choose that are innocular. You really should research your product or brand name before you take it to market. Have you got any further questions on that, Christine? Or
sorry, I didn't hear a lot of that. You were dropping in and out. But no, I think I'm fine. I mean, yes, I agree with you. We should have done it at the beginning. But it's one of those.
Am I back? Okay.
It says you've got low bandwidth, so I'm not sure whether there's something you can fix up.
Yeah, okay. I'll just keep talking. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
With some material. And Philip, in the meantime, would you mind doing a share screen of the designs? You there?
Yeah, I'll just 1 second.
Because I'm switching my video off just so to save bandwidth, and I'm going to talk now on this next section here on designs. Okay, And designs are an important part, as we've heard from Phillipe's discussion about, products. And I'm just going to talk through this sheet. So as I said before, maybe just a little bit further up on that sheet, if you don't mind. Just go back a little bit. Thank you so much. As I mentioned to you before, intellectual property represents the product of your mind or your intellect. Now, for you as practitioners, even service-based business, this can be anything from valuable creative work to the proprietary knowledge of how you run your business. As Phillipe is a designer, and many of you on the call may be entrepreneurs, this can now include, actually, in the area of digital, some pretty exciting new things such as 3D models, 3D objects, augmented and virtual reality designs, and the data within them. Okay, so in this new digital age, it's more important than ever to understand some of the core IP. We've covered two of them already. We've covered copyright, and now we've covered also trademarks. But now I want to touch on designs, okay? Now, because we've had some great visual examples, just to add that basically, any of the 4 products that we actually saw from Phillipe, these designs actually helps to protect the overall visual appearance of a product, okay? And this is important, what's important is it must be new and distinctive, okay? So we've seen chairs, pens, tables, software, even the design of the Macintosh products is probably a great example of something that has a unique look, ornamentation, shape, and feel. I'm talking on an iPhone 10, the iPhone 6 when it came out 10 years ago was just so different to anything else. And that was partly because of its design. Of course, its operation, software, and the underlying IP within it was important, but it was designed to be like touch, the iPod Touch, okay? And so under the Designs Act, you can actually protect products, but they need to be new and distinctive. And my core piece of advice here is ask who is your competitors. Your competitors is often where you will start to actually analyze your marketplace and then understand what could be unique and new and distinctive you can add to that area. So I'll just move on to this next quick steps around designs because, we've had some very colorful examples. My tip is to be aware of what your competitors are doing and to often conduct diligent searches, not only in the area of, in any of these areas, patents, trademarks, designs. There are free tools to use through IP Australia and the World Intellectual Property Organization where you can actually do a lot of due diligence yourself, okay? The Atmos database is what you use to search trademarks. There is a design database in Australia. And nowadays, even Google has a function where you can do patent searches, okay? And all of these are free to use. So I'll just skip through these next quick ones because I also want to get onto patents just to cover our main rights. But what's core, if you wouldn't mind just moving down there, Phillipe, is your design new and distinctive, okay? If you are looking at registering a design, I know it's not for everyone on the call today, but if you are listening to this in another forum, then it is important to understand that it is your industrial designer who's going to provide you. It's people like Phillipe who's going to provide you with the designs to actually help you, to actually then going to be registered with IP Australia. And once registered, they can be valued. And that goes for a timeline of up to 5 years, okay? But it will only be accepted by a design registrar with IP Australia if it is new and distinct, which means it's key to getting it first onto the design database because that establishes in all these areas of IP what's called a priority date. Even with trademarks or patents, you will always be assessed on the earliest possible date. And what we heard with Eric is that he, several years ago, secured the name and trademark iSolve data, including the emblem, the logo, which was really well designed. And he's protected all those things for 10 years. So it's important to put it on the register. Designs, trademarks, and this last one, patents, are all really, really core and key things in getting them registered. And I will touch on patents now. I don't have it's not on this particular sheet, but patents, is because it's come up today, are new inventive steps, okay? A patent will protect a new inventive step, and that can be anything for as far-reaching as pharmaceuticals, through to software, through to engineering. You know, Thomas Edison was a prolific patent. He made over 1,000 patents, registered 1,000 patents in his lifetime. GE Electric still stands strong as a business today. His estate is still valuable because he founded some of the new inventive steps of the 19th century, 18th and 19th century. And that is the power of patents. He leveraged the power of patents. Okay, Canva, which is the brainchild of Australia's third richest woman, who is only 33, Michelle Perkins. She has 25 patents in the Canva, protecting the Canva functionality. And the Canva trademark is registered in 60 countries worldwide, okay? This is the value of highly leveraged IP, some of it which was only created 10 years ago. So look, I've just covered 3 of the registrable rights and copyright today because I don't want to overwhelm everyone. But I do want to finish on this this point, which is this last number 4 and 5 on this sheet, if you wouldn't mind, Philip. Is the power of agreements. We've touched on considering protecting your brand with trademarks, but actually we'll furnish with agreements, because at the end of the day, licensing, it's the next one up. Yeah, sorry. It's licensing your design. And you're licensing either your design or your trademark or your patent is the incredible power of leveraged IP. You can register, and being aware of these IP rights is really fundamental. But at the end of the day, leveraging them is done through contracts. So it's much like a seesaw. The amount of knowledge that you have is leveraged when you actually put things in place, when you amplify its commercial value. And like a seesaw, it will leverage your product or your idea into far greater heights. And so with agreements, whether you're in patents or design or even in data, you need to be thinking about the agreements. The terms and conditions is what we put together for Eric's business to leverage his service in servicing other people's data. But Phillipe has worked with his own products, and he probably could talk also. Actually, do you have a few words to say about license agreements and how that's helped you take your products to market, Phillipe?
Yeah. Where can I find my? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I was also thinking that in a more inclined case, I know a couple of companies I worked with that secured a patent for their invention, and they license the patent to another company and sometimes even a competitor, and they make more money from the licensing than they make from the actual production of the product itself. So it could be a very, very good way to also increase your revenue, but also really increase profit margin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, no, that is a wonderful example of just the importance of considering it, and the power. It's a different area. It's a commercial area of law, but it often contains the necessary instruments in how to leverage that intellectual property. And that's where I'll just finish here today on this 5th point, just on the sheet here. Here's just a little bit of a checklist of some due diligence that you can do in any areas of this area of IP. First of all, any of these activities is like doing a risk assessment for your business to ensure you're not giving away your valuable ideas. I mean, I'm very passionate about discussing this, but also sharing this information, because a lot of people don't even see where it is in their own business, or they have a misunderstanding of what it is. And so that's why I think it's worth doing the due diligence at the very beginning and looking at what you can register and what capable of registering, either as a patent, as a trademark, as a design. Another couple of tips I can give you right now is just about whether you should always place your intellectual property in a holding company, in a proprietary limited or a holding company, because it's like parking your car in the garage, right? If you're leaving your intellectual property out on the street, you are just waiting for people to come and take it. However, putting registrable instruments together and protecting them is like putting up a security fence around your property and parking your most valuable asset, let's call it your idea, in your garage. And that's what you do when you put your assets, whether it's design, patents, or trademarks, you put them in your proprietary limited company, because then they can be valued. And when investors come, they're going to want to see that value is in your garage. Also, if you're working with collaborators, make sure that you have strong agreements between them, between you and your other collaborators, because at the end of the day, if Phillipe works with another designer or several, a whole team, then he's not going to make sure that actually it's his business that owns the ownership. So he needs to assign any other designer's rights over to his company who's worked on any one of his products. Okay, and that's a negotiation process. You might be paying someone a fee to make those materials, but at the end of the day, they need to be secured in your holding company, and anyone else that works on your project needs to sign. It's called an area of intellectual property that is otherwise known as chain of title. And much like you've got chain of title over your own physical property, you need to make sure you've got the chain of title over your own. You've got a title deed to the property that you may own. You need to make sure you have the title deeds to everything, or every one of your ideas, and all the title deeds are parked back in your own garage to ensure that you can then take it to market. And not what's more, it's not only secured behind a fence, but you can actually, you're the one that are in control to make deals, to go and make another one, to go and make another property, to actually take it on the market. And that's really part of this due diligence process. And just finally, making sure that also in your other commercial agreements, you're securing your intellectual property, touched on before, employees, suppliers, manufacturers, all of these agreements can have restrictive covenants as to who can use your valuable information, and they should be in place. They should absolutely be in place. And I can tell you the difference between a multi-million-dollar business and like a sole trader who may be trading, some of its products or some of its consulting services, are these steps. Some of these things are really important. Universal Site Monitoring has 11 employees, but they've got a multi-million-dollar valuation because they've protected their IP, and also they're very diligent about making sure that any of the IP of their developers goes back into the business. As I said, at the end of the day, that is their business, okay? You wouldn't drive your car without a license, so you should never be driving your business without registering or at least considering the protection of your most valuable assets, your ideas. I might leave it there because I've spoken enough, and I'd love to have any more time for any questions if you guys have some further, would like to go into further detail on any of those areas.
That's a very good question, Gareth. I brought up earlier on in discussion here about extending your patent. As you mentioned before, you've established it for us for 10 years. Now, let's say, obviously, we've still got plenty of time, but down the track, if you want to extend it, what's our position on doing that if we want to go down that path?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Eric. Yeah. Basically, whether if you've got a patent or a trademark or a design, you can extend your registration for a significant for another 5 years in the case of design, 20 in the case of patents, very expensive, I might add. And in trademarks, you can secure it for another 10 years. Okay. And the good news is that that's a disbursement, Eric, of only, I believe you only registered 2 classes from memory, or even one. It's only like $500 to expend it for another 10 years. So well worth especially if you're continually developing your business, because sometimes people forget, sometimes businesses go under and someone else secures the name. but in a very, it's got a value to you, and it's actually one of those things that you should absolutely protect and keep an eye on your renewals.
That's right. No, thank you very much. Yeah.
Not a problem. Anyone else got any questions, queries? Want to dig down deeper? Avoid $100
something when it comes to registration of the power of IP. So I mentioned the aquarium tank, the Zinio tank. That was about 18 months of R&D and design, and that's a fair amount of money.
Sure.
That money is being paid in just 12 months, thanks to the protection and the IP. And we had strategy and everything, but the IP protected the product and the business so that the competition could not enter that easily in a market segment. And that meant that we had another run of 13 years where every sales was just pure profit margin. So it's a very important aspect of the business, making sure that you secure some form of IP so that just from the business and the financial perspective, you get your money back and you're not taken over by competition.
Without a doubt, it's one of the biggest things I see. Every business owner has a case to actually put IP on their register, every single business. And I think it's partly the mature business owners or mature big business know this. Okay, they know they're building assets. Big corporations, McDonald's, Google, Facebook, they know they've got incredible assets, but they leveraged their ideas and they spread like wildfire. But they did the right things in terms of commercialization. And it must not only tech businesses, but also product businesses. Okay, a franchise is essentially a bundle of economic rights, a codified IP. Franchises, whether you're talking Yellow Brick Road, whether you're talking McDonald's, whether you're even talking Top Gear Australia. When I was at SBS Television, we licensed the idea from BBC to then put on a television show that follows rules. That's no different to the secret herbs and spice recipe. Franchises, you follow the rules, you buy in, and you follow a manual. That's what a franchise is. Okay, and it's highly leveraged IP, and it happens in a lot of industries. Boost Juice, everything from juice, television, financial services, have all been leveraged IP, and that comes with the protection of them, because you know what, when you can bet that the 7 secret herbs and spices has this particular way that it has to go to market. So it means the business journey for us all in commercializing IP is to codify, to understand how it is that you're doing what you're doing, and then take it to the furthest and the strongest market possible. Phillipe has done that. Okay, he has created a multi-million-dollar business out of no stronger ideas that anyone else on this call has. The difference is his strategy in how he's dealt with his IP. And it's why I wanted to have this for a long time, to have this discussion online today, because he understands that niche. And I think it just helps us all highlight to many others that they can do it too. It's actually just understanding how these 6 rights work, and then the power of contracts to leverage them like a seesaw. I've probably overwhelmed you all now, but unless you
look, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to have to head off. Look, lovely to meet you, Phillipe and Gareth and Eric. And look, I'll probably be in touch with a few of you to get some of our ideas protected.
Yeah, it sounds great. Really happy to help. And at the end of the day, you're leveraging your most valuable asset, which is your ideas. So
yeah.
We might leave it there because it has been I know that we are in a Christmas gold rush, but I'd like to thank everyone for being online. You've got my email. If there is anything else, any other questions, then I know that both Phillipe and I are happy to answer them. And I'll just put a Calendly link there too. which is on the second link in that, with the worksheet, if anyone or just email me, it's just easier because we're a small group. But I just want to say all the very best to you all in what has been a most unusual year, and best of luck with following your ideas to fruition next year. And special thanks, of course, to Phillipe for being a guest speaker today and for being so supportive on this journey.
Thank you, Gareth. Thanks everyone for your time. You have a great day.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Gareth and Phillipe, and good to meet you, Christine. So, yeah, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because we most likely won't talk until after then, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great day.
It's okay.
Bye.
Thank you.